Mueller, She Wrote is brought to you by our new daily news pod, The Daily Beans. Join AG, Jaleesa, and Jordan for 30 minutes each morning as we cover the news that's important to you, including social justice issues and the 2020 election, with context, jokes, and music by They Might Be Giants. The first episode drops July 22nd, so look for it wherever you get your podcasts. You'll be glad you did.
More news, more swears. Daily Fiends.
This is Seth Abramson. I'm the author of Proof of Collusion, and you're listening to Mueller, She Wrote.
So to be clear, Mr. Trump has no financial relationships with any Russian oligarchs.
That's what he said. That's what I said. That's obviously what our position is.
I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians.
What do I have to get involved with Putin for? I have nothing to do with Putin. I've never spoken to him. I don't know anything about him other than he will respect me. Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
So, it is political. You're a communist.
No, Mr. Green. Communism is just a red herring. Like all members of the oldest profession, I'm a capitalist.
Hello and welcome to Mueller, She Wrote. I'm your host, AG, and with me as always are Jaleesa Johnson.
Hello.
And Jordan Coburn.
Hello.
It was another interesting week of ups and downs in the news. How was your week, guys?
It was great, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I try to tune out the news when I have a self-care moment. So I did a lot of that,
Cool.
Hanging out.
Yeah, I was enjoying the Dem debates.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was a cool week in that sense. It's nice to have something to focus on that is not just the shitty things that Trump is doing.
Exactly.
Right, like nice ideas.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In conjunction with the shitty things Trump is doing, though.
Yes.
Those are still there.
In opposition to.
Ever present.
Yeah. It's always there hanging like low balls.
Yeah.
That you need a big dick toilet for.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he hired Matthew fucking Whitaker. That's his name. I can't even remember.
It's been
potato's
84
name.
years. Potato.
He does looks like a potato.
Or a thumb. Yeah, I can see
sweaty
that.
potato thumb.
Oh my
Can you imagine like a Mr. Potato Head, but it's a thumb?
Oh, yeah.
And you just stick subpoenas into it?
That's hilarious.
That would be rad. We're super excited to be headed to Philadelphia July 17th and then Chicago July 27th. We have San Francisco August 30th and Seattle, I think, is September 13th, Triple Door Theater. For tickets and information, head to MullerSheWrote.com. And somewhere in the middle of all that, we're launching the Daily Beans on July 22nd. Like we said, I think up in the pre-roll, it's a 30-minute morning news show for you by us. FIBU, I guess.
I like that.
If you become a patron now, you'll get access to ad-free episodes as long as we don't sell to a network, because we're going to try to remain independent as long as we can, and we'll give you those ad-free episodes. And we're also going to have a video feed, and that's just for patrons, and you can sign up for as little as $3 a month. So head to patreon.com/MullerSheWrote. Any level will get those things. You won't see it in the tier descriptions, but any level will get you that stuff. So patreon.com/MullerSheWrote. And, our patrons, support goes toward paying everybody a super high living wage. We go way above minimum wage. And it also helps give our employees health care, even our part-timers. We give it to everybody. So that is what your money goes to. I thought you might want to know that.
Very cool.
All right, with the housekeeping out of the way, it's time for our favorite new segment, Corrections.
It's a mistake. It's hard for me to say I'm sorry.
I made a mistake.
That's right. We're wrong, and we're not afraid to say so. This week, we've learned never to call Boston Beantown. We'll be there in November, and we'll be sure not to do that. Thank you, because we were talking about San Francisco, and you don't call it San Fran or Frisco. You call it the city.
Yes.
Or just San Francisco. And then we mentioned we were coming to Beantown, and I got a bunch of emails from Bostonians going, do not.
To be fair, in San Diego, we don't like it when they call it Diego.
Yeah.
So I guess we all have those things.
Or whale's vagina.
Yes.
Well, that I like.
That's true. That is a good bit. Beantown is Guy Fieri's Mexican restaurant.
Oh, is that why they don't want to associate with that?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh. That's great.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to do a Mexican Asian fusion restaurant called Señor Miyagi's, but it never went anywhere.
Yeah.
But it sounds there, and we actually do have one that's opening up, or had already opened up here in San Diego. I'm really excited about. It's not called that, but
I was going to say what?
I'm really excited about it. I think that's a really delicious fusion to try. So anyway, November. Not Beantown. We'll see you there. Last week, Jaleesa, you were telling us that you'd read about concentration camps in other authoritarian countries, and we got a few emails reminding us of the 1 million plus Uyghur Muslims that are being held in what China calls re-education camps in the Xinjiang province, which is part of what's referred to as the surveillance state, with dozens of cameras per block. And you can check that out in the New York Times. They've reported on it pretty extensively.
And that's currently, you said that's happening right now?
Yeah, that's the Uyghurs. And I know I had heard about this before. It was an omission from when we were talking about other countries and dictatorships that have concentration camps around the world. That's a big one.
Oh, yeah.
Another email was sent to us regarding my mention of the authoritarian use of intermittent conditioning last week. Really happy story. Letting us know it's part of what Naomi Klein calls the shock doctrine, which is a theory for explaining the way that force, stealth, and crisis are used in implementing neoconservative economic policies like privatization, deregulation, and cuts to social services. Its most recent egregious use was after Maria hit Puerto Rico. But a big part of it is exploitation of chaos post-disaster. And it reminds me of our entry into Iraq after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I started reading that book in middle school because I tried to look smart.
Middle school?
Yeah.
A little light reading.
Disaster capitalism.
Yeah.
Yes. This is
Ramona
when we
and
come in.
Beezus and Super Fudge and Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And the shock doctrine.
Yeah.
No, I can totally imagine a young Jordan doing that.
Yeah,
Jordan's summer reading list.
It was a big shiny silver book too, and I just like brandished it like a weapon of brains.
Nice.
And then I never read it because I'm a fucking douchebag.
Are you the real life Daria, or is it?
Who's that?
Oh, she's a cartoon character, correct?
Yeah, MTV.
Oh.
I dig it.
Oh,
I dig
the
it.
one with the glasses?
She's kind of like the girl from Parks and Rec, you know, that becomes Johnny Karate's wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
April Ryan or
totally.
something.
Yeah, no, I know. She's like a grungy looking kind of person.
April Ryan. What's her name?
I get those vibes. Yeah, from Jordan.
What's her
They're good
name?
vibes, I think, to have.
Oh, thanks.
Who would you say is like similar to you? Who's your human
I always
spirit
thought you
animal?
sounded like Rhett Butler, that comedian. She's
Oh.
awesome. Did you ever watch that?
I did, yes.
Yeah. See
it's
where I'm
funny.
getting at?
Yeah.
I was told by a listener that I sound like the queen from The Emperor's New Groove.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
Yzma?
Exactly. I do love that movie.
Pull the lever.
Yeah.
Wrong lever.
I liked Kronk.
Okay, Aubrey Plaza is the actress, and it's April Ludgate is
Yes.
is the character. So
Yes. No, I think self-hatred aside, that book was very compelling because it was like around Hurricane Katrina. And this must have been my freshman year in high school then. But it just, it was like more so I'm just a slow reader and I read like 2 pages a day. But anyway, what I read of it was good. It was very, it was like easy enough to understand for a high schooler, but it's crazy. A lot of it is like charter schools that pop up, for example, after Hurricane Katrina.
Oh, yeah.
Like in Louisiana, and how
okay.
they privatize education and they come in and they just start all of these systems basically that just are entirely privately funded, more or less.
Yeah.
Not entirely.
And I think I was kind of going for the shock doctrine idea, although instead of taking advantage of people, being discombobulated after a disaster, I think what I was trying to get at also, in addition to that, is Trump, intermittently threatening things and pulling them back so that, eventually nobody believes what he says. Like, I remember somebody saying when the tanker was attacked in the Strait of Hormuz and Trump was like, Iran attacked this tanker, nobody believed him. And what if it were true? Like, it's that kind of danger. But then he will try stuff and then not do stuff and then pull it back at the last minute and keep everybody super anxious and then use that kind of fear to manipulate everybody into feeling extra good when he doesn't bomb a country.
Yeah, almost like Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah, and he creates, let's like use the hurricane metaphor, he sort of creates the hurricane and then once this water's settled that he chooses when they settle, he comes in and tries to provide these services that seem like it's, oh, thank you, Donald Trump. But
Yeah. The hurricane disguised as FEMA.
Well, it's an island surrounded by water, very big water.
Oh my gosh.
Very blue, wet water. Yeah, that
he
guy.
said that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm paraphrasing, but not really.
About Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Why he couldn't reach
Oh,
them.
good.
he couldn't
Okay,
get
I
there.
thought, not good, but I thought you were talking about Louisiana, and I was like, okay, that
Oh, no.
is so awful.
No, he didn't do that. But he might. Who knows? Give him a
Still
chance.
awful.
Ask him about Katrina. He could. It's
Yeah.
big water island.
Louisiana Island.
He might think we mean Catalina instead of Katrina. And
Oh, that's
who
great.
knows? Because, he was asked this week what he thinks of Western government, Western liberalism or Western style government. And he started complaining about L.A. and San Francisco.
Yeah, he literally thinks it means Western U.S.
like the coast.
liberals.
He didn't realize we were talking about like Western Europe
democracy.
and Western democracy. And then when he was asked about busing, he was like, "Well, I don't know much about it, but how else are kids going to get to school?" Like he didn't even realize that they were talking
the context
about
of
forced busing. He just thought we were talking about people are against putting kids on buses to go to school or something.
Jeez Louise.
And like, can you imagine like thinking like not just going, why are people against buses? And
that's
finding
what he
out
thinks racism is.
yeah, or whatever. Just maybe he's like, what's wrong with buses? People get on buses.
That's what he thinks of Rosa Parks. He's like, what's wrong with buses?
He's so above buses. He maybe it's true. Maybe people are against busing. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you think about the amount of things he must hear on a daily basis at which he has no idea what they mean. So this is just what he does.
But he
just hears something and just riffs.
Yeah, and he's the president, so people are going to him daily, probably like by the minute for answers, and he's constantly giving them
I don't think they do that anymore.
Yeah. Thank God.
Remember, they're like, just don't even bring it up to him. Just don't. Just steal the papers away, destroy. Just don't.
Yeah, I guess that is what it is now, right?
Yeah, it's been that way, I think, for a while. Which is, I'm thankful that people are keeping important things away from the president. Like, for example,
shit, right?
that we are trying to cyber invade Russia's electricity grid, but they're like, just don't tell him. Just
yeah, because he won't read the news. He won't even know that we're talking about it right now.
No, he won't. and of course, he would go and tattle to Putin.
Yeah.
On his own intelligence community.
But for
doing
that to be a relief, it just shows where we are once again.
That's
reminder.
That shock doctrine shit right there. This week I used the term modus operandi as the singular, and that would be modus operandum. So, because I said Trump's modus operandi was this one thing, which is the shock doctrine or the intermittent conditioning.
Yeah, very nerdy correction. I like that.
Yeah, I keep getting my Latin wrong, and I'm a little ashamed. But it has been 30 years. So.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I only took it because it was at the boys' school. So,
well, hopefully when you run for president, people aren't sitting there trying to speak Latin.
Oh my goodness!
Somebody at the debates.
Yeah. Well, actually, technically, I can see that.
Somebody at the debates just busts out in Latin or Sanskrit. Like, check me out. I'm going to reach out to those Latin voters.
Right, maybe. Yeah, I was going to say Trump thinks that's what the Mexicans speak.
Yeah, that's they try so hard. They learn a whole language. Or like, I thought the Latins would listen.
It's the wrong Latin. The
Latinx, that it was ex-Latin, like old Latin.
Okay. A patron also wanted to remind us regarding our discussion of the Oregon State Legislature being threatened by militia groups, that it was those same guys, the Ammon Bundy guys that holed up at the wildlife refuge, and Trump pardoned those guys. And someone just wanted to point out that connection. They're also called the 3%ers.
Oh, okay.
And the reason they're called I knew it was 3 something, but the reason they're called the 3%ers, let's see here, is because it's only 3% of colonists fought in the American Revolution.
Right, so they're calling themselves the 3% of Americans who will step up to the job and do what needs to be
will
done.
Win the revolution
for sure.
Yeah,
I guess so.
Okay. Yeah, and Trump pardoned those guys, so wonderful.
Yeah, go figure.
Marsha P. Johnson was the trans woman of color that is said to have thrown the first brick at Stonewall.
That's right. Yeah.
And because we were trying to remember who it was.
Exactly.
Or how
it was
started.
POC, a trans person. I just didn't know exactly. But yeah, Marsha P. Johnson. That's right.
And someone suggested we... If we ever have any stories that come up in our feed and we accidentally report them as being now, but they were from 2 years ago, like the Marco Rubio story that we did the other day. Like, can you believe he just said that? It was 2 years ago, actually, so that's actually a correction. But they say we should call those refried beans.
Yes. Oh, great idea.
And so here's my thought with for a segment in the Daily Beans, our new news show. I'm thinking we'll do something called refried beans, where we check up on stories that are old and never got a follow up. And like a where are they now segment to a degree, right? Kind of, because that happens a lot in the news. We talk about stuff. We try to keep circling back to things, and we'll remind you of the fact that we spoke about them before in case you're new to the show and didn't hear us talk about them. But there's a lot of news stories that just pop up and then disappear, and so I thought it would be a really cool segment to kind of dig up those old stories, find out if we were right, wrong, how it went down, if it's still open and ongoing or if it's a closed thing, and we'll call it refried beans.
I like
love
that
that.
idea.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we're very split on whether the beans are in reference to coffee or actual beans.
You'll never know. She is holding a coffee mug, but it could be full of refried beans.
She could just drink beans.
I eat refried beans out of coffee mugs. So, and we actually have Muller, She Wrote coffee mugs at MullerSheWrote.com. They're super awesome. Check those out. And let's see. Next correction. That's all we have.
Oh, cool. Those
Awesome.
were good. Great corrections, guys.
Really, mostly additions and omissions, except from a crap Latin.
Yeah, and suggestions. I like this, though. It's a good segment for that.
It is. And so thank you for these corrections. If you have one, please go to MullerSheWrote.com, click Contact, select Corrections, and send away. We'll get it right eventually.
That's our slogan.
Yes. We'll get it right eventually.
Fox News should say that if you want to be honest, right? Or actually, no.
We'll never get it right. Fair and stupid.
There you go.
All right, guys. We have a lot of news to get to. A lot. So let's jump in with just the facts. All right, guys. We open this week with an update on the scandalous Duncan Hunter, Republican representative in Congress who reminds me of Councilman Bill Dexhart in Parks and Recreation.
I have served for almost 2 decades for the city of Pawnee, and I have no intentions of giving up on this great city, because it didn't give up on me, even when I was using its funds to procure the sex of a lifetime.
Court filings reveal this week that in addition to the 60 counts of fraud and campaign finance charges against him and his wife, Margaret, Duncan Hunter was spending said campaign funds on at least 5 different side pieces, most of them lobbyists, which makes me wonder if Duncan Hunter thinks that being in bed with lobbyists means he literally has to be in bed with lobbyists. The filing alleges he used campaign funds to pay for trips, dinners, and drinks with women he slept with, such as a ski trip to Lake Tahoe, Uber rides to and from women's homes, and beer and nachos at concerts.
Sounds like a nice life.
Yeah,
oh,
right?
yeah.
Meanwhile, Hunter's wife, Megan, who he publicly blamed for all this, threw under the bus. Not the busing.
Right. Trump's like, what's the problem with buses?
Yeah. What do you mean? Threw under the bus. I like buses. People, that's how you get to school. So Megan has withdrawn her not guilty plea and has agreed to cooperate fully with prosecutors, and it appears she shared text messages between the two of them in which they discussed using campaign funds on personal shit with the prosecution. And we all know Mark Hempenajar is running against Duncan Hunter in California's 50th district, right next door to us in El Cajon, so please donate to his campaign. Hunter's trial is set to begin in September. He will lose. Put some beans on it.
Nice. I just moved from El Cajon, basically. Yeah,
good. Good job.
Yeah, I didn't know. I had no idea he was my person that whole time.
Yeah.
I felt weird vibes out there. It's probably what it is.
It probably was.
Yeah,
You
very
felt like a
weird.
gross, crimey vibe?
Very sticky in the air. Yeah.
That's what it is. El Cajon it means the coffin.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally the box, but it's supposed to...
It feels like a hot box.
It's supposed to mean the coffin, in reference to... So if you see the signs that say El Cajun, that's what El Cajon is. Welcome to our state. Also, Michael Flynn was back in court this week with his brand new crackpot, washed-up Tommy Lahren and sad about it lawyer Sidney Powell. If you'll recall, she's the Fox pundit who created creepsonamission.com, and that's all about the corrupty, hoaxy witch hunter Robert Mueller. She publicly called for Trump to pardon Flynn, and when he hired her, we all thought for sure he was going to withdraw his guilty plea, right? He was going to bust his plea agreement and plead not guilty. But in a hearing this week, that did not happen. Instead, Powell and Flynn confirmed that he would be testifying in the upcoming trial of Flynn's lobbying partner, Bijan Kian. But Sidney Powell asked for 90 days to read into Flynn's case. Judge Sullivan, who at one time asked Mueller's team if they'd consider charging Flynn with treason and encouraged him to continue cooperating if he were to expect no jail time, as Mueller recommended, didn't grant 90 days. Sullivan did not give her 90 days, gave her 60 instead, with the express confirmation that Flynn would be continuing to assist in the Bijan Kian trial. But Powell made an odd request to the court. She asked for a security clearance for her review of Flynn's case, but the prosecution, Brandon Van Grack, in this case, who was a member of Mueller's team and now heads up the new FARA enforcement unit at the Department of Justice, he told the judge that nothing they've provided requires a security clearance, and it's still unclear why she requested one, unless she's looking to get her hands on what we consider potential FISA warrants covering those conversations between Kislyak and Flynn and potential additional conversations that haven't even been publicly reported. If you remember last month, Sullivan ordered the release of those transcripts along with the release of the voicemail with, from Dowd
right.
to Flynn's lawyer where he dangled a pardon and threatened him, witness tampering.
Yeah.
But after prosecutors in the Department of Justice objected to releasing those transcripts, Sullivan conceded, and the government still has not publicly acknowledged those conversations even exist. In fact, in one of Flynn's pleading documents or sentencing memos, I can't remember, Flynn told Mueller's team, you probably have all the recordings of these calls anyhow, but the government redacted that statement. So, weird.
Yeah.
When asked why she needed the clearance when there were no classified documents supplied by the prosecution, Powell said, that's with regards to what they produced. There is other information. Some experts opine she's looking for information to secure a pardon from Trump. She's looking for dirt. She's looking for, whatever.
To lead his charge. Yeah.
And typically, defense lawyers need a government agency to sponsor them to get a clearance, and then the FBI conducts the background check. Sullivan told Powell in the case that a classified security officer would assist her in her request. And I can't wait for her background check information to be FOIA'd by journalists or leaked to the public. We should get another update at the end of August. That's the 60 days. And Keon's trial begins mid-July. Keon, if you remember, asked for a delay until fall because of his daughter's wedding, and instead the judge moved it up to before the wedding. I thought that was crafty. This week, Axios somehow got a hold of vetting dossiers for potential Trump administration jobs from the Trump transition team. So before Christopher Steele, the term dossier referred to a packet of information on a person that could be used for any number of purposes. Mm-hmm. In the hotel industry, we used to have every company that would book a block of rooms and have an event had a dossier. With all their pertinent information. In the movies, a hitman would receive a dossier on the mark they were going after. So here we have a bunch of packets on individuals that were being considered for positions in the White House, and these are pretty hilarious. For example, one of the concerns for General Petraeus as defense secretary or national security advisor is that he opposes torture. That was a bad thing for the Trump administration.
Yeah, I guess so.
They're like, this guy's great. I mean, he cheats on his wife. He leaks secrets to the, to the journalist, but he opposes torture. Nope.
Deal breaker for the White House now. Yeah.
And then Nazi Fox, Laura Ingraham, who was being considered for press secretary. That's Smokey Eye's job right now. She's leaving today, by the way.
Yeah, she's
today is her last day.
With her chins held high, as many people on Twitter have said.
Damn.
I'm not. That's not my chin shaming.
Just passing along the word.
I'm just passing along the word.
Retweets are not endorsements.
Because
retweets
are not repods are not pods.
Our own.
Yeah, because I myself have some chin issues. So.
Oh God, me too.
That's just this is literally simply just Smokey Eye shaming. Anyway, she had said people should wear diapers instead of sharing bathrooms with transgender people.
Oh my God.
So it's nice to know the administration thought that was a bad statement, at least.
Yeah, sure, yeah. But just hearing it.
And voter fraud Führer Chris Kobach, who was being considered for Department of Homeland Security Secretary, showed one of his vulnerabilities was white supremacy.
Okay, like one of your weaknesses in an interview,
Skills, hobbies.
Yeah, that'd be a great answer to a job interview.
Yeah.
In person. Yeah.
Where do you see yourself?
Strengths
in
and
5
weaknesses. Yeah. I'm a really hard worker, but I am a white supremacist.
Yeah, what's your biggest strength?
5-year ethnic cleansing plan,
Headlocks. And that he has ties to white supremacy groups. So that was one of the issues they were worried about when they wanted to vet him. Sonny Perdue, who was being considered for the agriculture secretary, owned Houston Fertilizer and Grain, which had received hefty contracts from the Department of Agriculture. And then they vetted this guy Puzder for labor secretary. Puzder, not Pudzer, Puzder. It's like a Mifsud situation.
Right.
And he was up for labor secretary, but somehow they missed his domestic violence problem. Oops.
Oh, yeah.
And recently we learned about Shanahan, who was the acting SecDef Secretary of Defense, who was also embroiled in domestic violence issues because his wife was arrested for punching him in the face, and his son was in trouble for beating his mom with a baseball bat.
Wow. I'm starting to think it's not just about Trump feeling comfortable around other criminals. I think he just wants people that are equally vulnerable, right?
Oh, yeah.
Blackmailable. It's kind of their whole jam. He's in it. They're in it. Yeah.
I'm surprised these vetting documents didn't have a section on blackmailable shit.
Right?
In fact, that might just be what those entire documents were. But
yeah, we're assuming the white supremacy thing was negative. I think it does say that it's negative, but it very well could be a positive on some sort of black market document.
Yeah. Right, like a wink and a nod. Like, here's just everything you need to know.
Yeah, right.
And for Laura Ingraham too, I was thinking this. I bet the reason they flagged her for that wasn't because the anti-transgender comment wasn't because, this is bad. to be transphobic. It was probably because they knew they were going to roll back transgender rights, and that coming from a press secretary who
if we're gonna fuck the transgender people we can't have somebody who's openly anti-transgender. Yeah, either that or they didn't want to offend babies who wear diapers.
Right, probably that, because they don't seem to give a fuck about being obvious. They do that all the time now. So yeah,
that's
probably
a
the
good
diapers
point.
thing. Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? But it's interesting to know that she said that. I didn't know she ever said that. So that was news to me.
She has a great track record. Remember that whole thing on Twitter with her doing the Heil Hitler salute when she was? That was great.
Every time a left-leaning news organization does a story on her, they use that photo.
Yeah,
blue dress, Heil Hitler.
Good. There you go. You did that to yourself.
Her Renaissance painting will be that.
That's her. Yeah, that's her employee of the month photo.
Definitely.
I bet they do that in the White House because they serve fast food, so they must have an employee of the month, right?
Yeah.
So then this week,
it's just someone with duct tape over their mouth and a scared look at their eyes.
Yeah.
Raw story, guys. Raw story. I love. God bless you. What? God bless you. I never said that. But Raw story ran a headline this week saying Bill Barr kills 7 Mueller investigations 10 days after he released his report. And no, I cover that with former US Attorney Harry Litman in the interview a bit later, so stick around for that. You're going to want to hear that. In case you were wondering what that headline means, we break it all down for you, so you definitely want to stick around for that. And a federal judge ruled this week that one of the emoluments lawsuits against Trump will be allowed to move forward. This is a case filed by 213 congressional Democrats. Judge Emmett Sullivan, that's Flynn's judge, denied a motion for the Department of Justice for an appeals court to review his previous rulings that the lawsuit can advance. Trump argues that members of Congress do not have the power to sue the president, and that the case must be dismissed. And they claimed that if the appeals court agreed with their bullshit definition of the emoluments clause, the complaint could be significantly narrowed. Well, Sullivan wrote that Trump failed to meet his burden of establishing that an immediate appeal from the order may materially advance the ultimate termination of the litigation. In other words, Trump's bullshit definition of the emoluments clause won't stand up in court. That's basically what he's saying.
Nice.
It won't face appeal very well, if you will. This lawsuit was first filed in 2017, alleging Trump was in violation of the Constitution by continuing to profit from foreign businesses while being president. Department of Justice actually argued that Trump needs to be receiving profits directly from foreign governments in explicit exchange for policy in order to violate the emoluments clause. That's actually the criminal definition of conspiracy. Everyone with a brain knows that emoluments has a much broader definition and doesn't require an explicit quid pro quo, which is what we call quid pro quo. The emolument, I can't believe I just said that correctly.
Yeah, I always imagine it's like when you're trading a squid for a crow. That's like in my head. It's like a barter situation.
You just hand one and get the other.
I got a squid, you got a crow.
You got the squid?
Yeah, I got the squid.
Opens up a trench coat, shows him the crow. Toss it over.
That would be a very strange trade.
It would, yeah. But who knows? You don't know what you need till you need it. You know?
Throat in the bottom of a parking garage. I just have trading places in my head. You got that crop report?
Like, I need this crow. I got to get more squids.
Yeah, man.
I gotta get more squids.
It's in high demand.
What is the common denominator for squids and crows? I don't know, but Trump sure does. So anyway, guys, the emoluments clause requires congressional approval of any gifts the president gets from foreign governments. So Trump's argument that Congress has no power is the most moronic argument I've ever heard, because the Constitution says it's the congressional approval that is required to get around the emoluments clause or to be in compliance with it. Sullivan also ordered an abbreviated schedule for filings, meaning shut up, and that he could be prepared to rule in about 6 months, which puts us smack dab in the middle of election season.
Wow.
So put some beans on it. And the Austrian Supreme Court has determined that Ukraine oligarch Dmitry Firtash, who is linked to Paul Manafort, can be extradited to Chicago on bribery charges. Earlier, I think on June 21st, Firtash's lawyers put in for a motion to dismiss. It was denied. The country's justice minister, Austria's justice minister, will make the final decision. Not only is this important to Ukraine, which has struggled to hold corrupt and wealthy individuals accountable, but this could lead to questioning from our FBI that could shed light on the funneling of Russian mob money into real estate, including Trump real estate. And Firtash could provide new revelations on Manafort. Leaked cables from 2010 show Firtash is associated with Mogilevich, and he was partners with Lyavachkin. And that's the guy who paid Sam Patton $50,000 for a ticket to the Trump inaugural, and was one of the people who received polling data from Manafort.
Yeah, that's juicy.
Little connections. That's why you listen to Mueller, She Wrote, for all these little dots. Sam Patton, as we know, was charged and pleaded guilty to funneling money to the Trump inaugural. Lanny Davis, which is Cohen's lawyer, is representing Firtash.
Not Larry Davis, although that'd be a great person to play
Larry
him on
David?
SNL. Larry David, there we go. Yeah.
And he's like in court, like, my balls are showing, or whatever the fuck happens in that show. I don't know.
Everything goes wrong that can go wrong. It's Murphy's Law constantly.
Larry David.
That's great.
Representing Firtash and Cohen.
Curb your emoluments.
Yeah. Curb your bribery.
There
It's
we
like
go.
asking him to scoot over at the bench, just like, can you just
Yeah, at the
scoot over?
inaugural, you know, just
I don't understand. Why do you have to be right here?
Yeah, why are you right on me?
Just a little bit.
Just go over there. Just plead guilty. Just
Come on.
say it.
That's great.
Oh, we got to do an episode. Anyway, yeah, Lanny Davis is representing Firtash. He had to register under FARA to be able to do so. So, okay.
Interesting.
And we've talked about this for a long time, that Firtash and Mogilevich are tied together, and that's how Lanny Davis is tied to Mogilevich, and they're all just so mobbed up. And speaking of Manafort, by the way, he was arraigned this week in New York in the state court, and he pleaded not guilty to 16 counts of state mortgage fraud, tax fraud, and conspiracy. His lawyer's planned defense has to do with New York's double jeopardy protections, but I don't think those apply, and I'm going to talk to Harry Litman about that later in the interview, as well as how he possibly got a pass on having to stay at Rikers during his trial. His next hearing is scheduled for October 9th, so we'll keep you posted and check out the interview in a little bit. Okay, so this week, amid reports of the horrific conditions at the border in concentration camps, the acting head of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, John Sanders, resigned his post effective July 5th, pretty much immediately. And Trump has tapped Mark Morgan, a former Obama official and proponent of the wall, to head the agency. Mark Morgan is the current acting head of ICE. They're all acting, by the way. Acting!
Yeah.
He is the guy known for saying on Fox News that he could look into the eyes of a migrant child and tell they're future MS-13 gang members.
Yeah, racist, you know. At least a little bit.
And that's the guy who will oversee the detention of thousands of migrant children who are being held in deplorable conditions for extended periods of time. And Nancy Pelosi lost control of her caucus as the House was unable to add protections for these children in their border aid bill. And they passed the Senate's version instead. Centrist House Democrats were not willing to cut ICE funding by $8 million in exchange for soap, food, beds, and restrictions on how long children can be held under what conditions. They wanted to cap it at 90 days, but Flores, the law says 72 hours is the max. So 90 days they weren't even cool with, the Republicans. So this is a loss for Democrats. And the situation at the border worsens, and now Trump is pivoting, saying this untenable situation is what he meant by there being a crisis at the border. And blames Democrats for not closing asylum law loopholes instead of his own Department of Justice's self-proclaimed, deterrent zero-tolerance policy on family separation. So everybody please head to lightsforliberty.org to attend or host an event July 12th for a nationwide rally and vigil to close the camps and reunite the families and release the kids.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to add that if Trump in his brain thinks that the crisis is the caravan, because maybe that's what he's probably thinking in terms of like this being a problem, it's the root of the caravan is what's happening in all those countries. And I feel like he refuses to address that.
He totally does. He's actually stripped funding for the Southern Triangle. So that's a big problem, and it is the root cause, and it's only going to get worse. We got some huge Mueller news this week. I'm going to cover that in Hot Notes. And this week, the NRA terminated production of NRA TV. Boo. I'm so sad. And it has split with its advertising firm, Ackerman McQueen, which employed Dana Loesch and operated the NRA's live broadcast. She was a host on one of the stupid shows.
Right.
The NRA's CEO, Wayne LaPierre, said in a statement, many members expressed concern about the messaging on NRA TV becoming too far removed from our core mission. This comes as the New York AG has investigated and issued subpoenas into NRA's tax-exempt status and reports of questionable payments by the NRA, which is chartered in New York State. That's where the NRA is, that's its roots.
Yeah.
Weird.
Their headquarters.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And we know that Oliver North stepped down as president from the NRA to form a committee to examine LaPierre's financial mismanagement, which has left the NRA $10 million in the red. Yay. We will happily continue to follow the death of the NRA as it happens.
Oh, yes. We'll be celebrating the whole time.
And Kellyanne Conway, Ann Coulter's Dorian Gray. She cannot seem to not violate the Hatch Act and was subpoenaed this week by the House Oversight Committee after she failed to appear at a hearing to answer questions about her criming. The White House blocked her from appearing So the oversight panel voted to authorize Cummings to issue the subpoena. This was all in response to the official special counsel the Office of Special Counsel, which is not Mueller, it's its own thing, run by a Trump appointee. They issued a report citing Conway for multiple violations of the Hatch Act, which prohibits executive branch employees from participating in political speech while performing their official duties. Kerner, who leads the Office of Special Counsel and, like I said, was appointed by Trump, described Conway as a repeat offender of the Hatch Act and recommended that Trump fire her. The Hatch Act has no punishment other than removal, and so there's no mechanism for punishment. And that decision is up to the boss. So I'm not sure where they're going with this. They can't enforce it. But, Trump continues to say he won't fire Conway. So
Right. Just one more thing to add to the pile.
I'm surprised he doesn't just let her go and testify and then have them find that she definitely was violating the Hatch Act, and then he just throws it in their face that nothing's going to happen. I feel like that'd be more fun for him that way, if he let it get close.
The only thing I can think of is it might be an abuse of power that you could add to an article of impeachment.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep adding that, make the articles of impeachment be like 800 of them.
Yeah, and their lies are obstructions of justice, if I had to guess, right? Like just when they lie about the Mueller report.
Or at least maybe telling her not to go speak to Congress, that could be obstruction.
For sure, I would think so.
Yeah, but I don't know what justice they're obstructing when it's his decision as to whether or not they fire her.
He's not justice, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, but he's in charge of whether or not she gets removed.
That's the big conundrum there.
And the Hatch Act is one of those things that's not like a criminal crime that's prosecutable by jail time or anything.
Right, it's a law, but the only recourse is removal, and that is up to the boss.
Mm-hmm.
So,
boss man.
The Supreme Court this week handed down two major decisions. The first one blocking the citizenship question from being added to the 2020 census, which was designed by the grand wizard of gerrymandering, Thomas Hofeller, to help Republicans draw lines around Latinx voters to purposefully disenfranchise them. He said that with his mouth, or with his pen.
Yeah.
But we weren't more than 2 minutes into celebrating this decision when Kavanaugh blew it all up by voting to remove the federal courts from stopping gerrymandering when states draw their districts. And this is a huge decision with massive ramifications, and it's a giant loss for Democrats in states such as North Carolina, where the lines are drawn in such a way that even though 50% of voters voted Democrat and 50% voted Republican, the Democrats got 3 seats and the Republicans got 10.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And this is happening in Wisconsin is like this too. This is happening in states all over that are run by Republicans.
And then is there anything we can do to reverse that? Maybe adding other Supreme Court justices? Because I've heard they've done that before, right? Apparently they've added Supreme Court justices.
Yeah, we have to win the presidency first.
Yeah, okay, cool. But there is a way. It's not fucked forever, probably.
It's fucked for 2020.
Okay.
Wait, no, I think it happens after 2020.
Well,
I think it goes into effect after 2020. I think that's why Maddow was saying everybody run now.
Yeah.
Everybody get as many Democrats to win in the blue wave in 2020 as you can so that you can, because the way to stop it is to get Democrats at least to have one of the 3 branches of state government so that they can prevent those lines from being drawn.
Very nice.
That I think is the way.
Okay.
Or impeach Kavanaugh, or yes, add 3 Supreme Court justices to the thing, but it would have to come back up again. And once a Supreme Court decision has been handed down, it's hard to go against it unless it's Roe v. Wade and you're Kavanaugh. I think it's vitally important here to point out that Justice Kennedy had indicated he would probably vote against gerrymandering before his odd and abrupt retirement. Kavanaugh, who replaced him and clerked for him, voted the other way this week. And we would be stupid not to investigate the retirement of Kennedy, especially since his son worked for Deutsche Bank when it lent Trump over $1 billion when no American bank would. And don't forget that Trump is desperately trying to block anyone from seeing his Deutsche Bank finances. In fact, he prioritized the appointment of his personal tax consultant as the IRS general counsel over the confirmation of Bill Barr, indicating he's more worried about us learning what's in his taxes and in his Deutsche Bank records than he is about learning what was in the Mueller report. Us learning what was in the Mueller report. And during the entire Kavanaugh confirmation, I kept asking, why? You remember? I was like, why doesn't he just pull him in the face of this sexual assault allegation? Just pull him. And he's unhinged. His unhinged performance is terrible. You could pick one of the ladies off of the Federalist list. But he didn't. Kept him there. Fought for him and had McGahn hold his hand through the whole thing. And the Kavanaugh's debts and mortgages were mysteriously paid off. And how can we forget that video of Justice Kennedy and Trump where Trump says something to Kennedy, Kennedy stops, whips his head around, and reprimands Trump, shaking his finger at him, and then Trump waves him off.
Yeah, he stopped dead in his tracks. That was weird.
Yeah, and he just walks away. You want my super space beans?
Oh, yeah.
Leonard Leo, he's the head of the Federalist Society, worked with McConnell, who blocked Merrick Garland, and he worked with McGahn, who personally was responsible for ushering in Kavanaugh's nomination. They all worked together to ensure Kennedy's retirement by offering his Deutsche Bank son some clemency, all to allow gerrymandering and to overturn Roe v. Wade. And I bet that video of Trump and Kennedy, I bet Trump said to Kennedy, "I'll get your son off the hook," which prompted Kennedy to turn around and say, "Don't fucking say that in public. Don't ever say those words out loud."
Wow. It's
then,
like lip reading, like those YouTube videos.
I didn't even lip read. I'm just guessing.
But it's like one of those boyfriends that like touches you way too much in public, and it's like, dude, get your hand off my ass, man.
Yeah.
And then Cohen probably
you later.
And then Cohen probably paid off Kavanaugh's debts for him for having to go through the whole rape allegation hearing. Someone needs to investigate this, quid pro quo, and plumb the depths of the corruption of Kavanaugh's appointment to SCOTUS, because I think that there's something to this. I don't think that this is crazy two tinfoil space beans. This is weird. Weird. It's just weird.
Yeah, talk about refried beans. Those definitely have to be readdressed.
We'll refry those. This week, Stone's lawyers filed an 11-page response to Judge Jackson's order to explain how he didn't violate his gag order. It's hilarious, and Jordan has that for us in Hot Notes. It's really entertaining. And Trump is overseas at the G20 summit. He's already stepped in it twice with Putin. First, when they were both complaining about the fake news in their countries, and Trump told Putin to just get rid of them regarding the journalists. And this was on the anniversary of the shooting at the Capitol Gazette. And as Trump refuses to comply also with the Magnitsky Act rules that require him to respond to the murder of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Then, when a reporter asked Trump if he'd ask Russia to stop meddling in our elections, Trump smiled, turned to Putin, laughed, and said, "Stop meddling in our elections," and then turned back to the reporter. This all comes down to what Jimmy Carter said this week in Leesburg, Virginia. He said, quote, "There's no doubt that the Russians did interfere in our election, and I think the interference, although not yet quantified, I think if fully investigated, would show Trump actually did not win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put in office because of Russian interference on his behalf." When asked if Carter believed that Trump is an illegitimate president, he sat there for a minute and then said, "Well, based on what I just said, which I can't retract," and then everyone laughed.
I can't retract.
There is no doubt the Russians tried to help elect Trump, and Trump is extremely sensitive on the legitimacy of his election, and that makes him compromised and unable to protect our democracy from future attacks.
Yeah.
And milkshake Matt Gaetz is now under investigation by the House Ethics Committee for attempt. He probably didn't even know it existed. The House Ethics Committee for attempting to intimidate Michael Cohen ahead of his congressional testimony earlier this year. Gaetz had declined the committee's request to appear before them in May, and they had told Gaetz that they wouldn't be able to resolve the ethics complaint against him without his testimony. Per the committee rules, if Gaetz did not appear by June 24th, they would be required to open an investigative subcommittee to review the allegations. Gaetz said Friday, "If members of Congress want to spend their time psychoanalyzing my tweets, it's certainly their prerogative. I won't be joining them in that endeavor." Okay. The tweet that caused all this and also forced the Florida Bar Association to investigate him read, quote, "Hey, Michael Cohen, 212, do your wife and father-in-law know about your girlfriends? Maybe tonight would be a good time for that chat. I wonder if she'll remain faithful when you're in prison. She's about to learn a lot." And the real threat here, I think, is mentioning Cohen's father-in-law, who's a mobbed-up crimer himself, right? When accused of witness tampering, Gaetz defended his tweet, saying, quote, "We're witness testing, not witness tampering."
What the hell? It's like alternative facts or something.
And we?
Yeah, who is
you get
this?
A mouse in your pocket? Who you talking about, we? You and Trump?
Someone maybe in France.
Is that medium salsa?
We? Yeah.
I don't know where that came from.
What does we mean again?
Yeah, we.
It's like, I think it means yes.
Oh, in French?
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Okay,
yes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I think it means us. But Gaetz later apologized and deleted the tweet, saying it wasn't intended as a threat. "We at Mueller," she wrote, "wish the worst of luck to Matt Gaetz in his endeavor."
Definitely.
Officially.
Also, Thursday, prior to the debate, Don Trump Jr. retweeted a racist tweet about Kamala Harris, questioning her nationality, effectively re-enlisting a new form of birtherism. He quickly deleted the tweet, and Jaleesa has more about that, along with some debate coverage in the Hot Notes. And a last-minute bit of justice. The neo-Nazi who mowed down 36 people and killing Heather Heyer at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville nearly 2 years ago was sentenced to life in prison yesterday for 29 federal hate crimes, I believe.
Wow.
I'm not going to say his name because fuck him. And I hope he rots there. I just have one piece of advice for him. When you're in prison, walk in the yard and you can't decide if you want to hang out on the courts or by the weights. Just remember, there's good people on both sides. I just wanted to get that out there. Guys, we'll be right back with Hot Notes. Hey guys, this is AG from Muller, She Wrote. We're excited to announce we will be launching our new daily news pod, The Daily Beans, this July 22nd for your morning commute. The Daily Beans is a progressive, women-run news pod that will run about 30 minutes so you can get all your news from the hosts of the Webby Award-winning Muller, She Wrote. In addition, patrons will get ad-free episodes and access to our studio webcams. We're dressed. You'll also get our newsletter, our research notes, access to live show, pre-sale, and special events, and really great thank you gifts, all for as little as $3 a month. To sign up, head to patreon.com/MullerSheWrote today. All patrons of Muller, She Wrote will become patrons of the Daily Beans, and at any level, any subscription level, you will get all those things there that I mentioned with the cameras and the newsletter and the ad-free Daily Beans episodes. And guys, patrons help us pay well above minimum wage and provide health benefits to our employees, even the part-time ones. Daily Beans will keep you up to date on election coverage, social justice issues, and the important stories affecting us all. Follow us on Twitter at DailyBeansPod. Sign up to become a patron and look for it July 22nd. Continue to join us Sunday nights for Muller, She Wrote and Thursday nights for our page-by-page special coverage of the Mueller Report. You'll be glad you did. All right, welcome back. Hot Notes. All right, guys, welcome to Hot Notes. Today, Jordan has some information on Roger Stone. It's really hilarious. But first, Jaleesa, birtherism anew, and some Dem debate highlights. What do you have for us?
Oh, yeah. So today we learned from the New York Times that birtherism is back. It all started when Donald Trump Jr. retweeted a post falsely claiming that Kamala Harris is not black enough to discuss the struggle of African Americans. And the tweet from some right-wing troll...
But Trump Jr. is definitely black enough to decide who's black enough?
I guess so. I guess that's the takeaway. Yeah.
Okay. Retweets are not endorsements.
Good point. The tweet was from some right-wing troll, and quote was, Kamala Harris is implying she is descended from African black slaves. She's not. She comes from Jamaican slave owners. That's fine. She's not an American black, period. And that was just one of them. I saw some others where it seemed like it was supposed to...
What?
I know. Also, what? But there were some that were claiming it was from other black people saying...
I'm sorry, I'm only going to vote for African black slave descendants, not Jamaican black slave descendants.
Yeah, they're also saying I'm only going to vote... It sounds more like they only want to vote for indigenous black people.
Yeah,
which
it's
are
very
like
strange.
Not an American black.
Yeah. I'm so confused.
What?
Yeah.
No, there's like 18 things in there. I just don't even understand.
For sure. We could talk grammatical issues with this tweet all day. The main point is that Trump Jr. tweeted this out to his millions of followers with the caption, "Wow, is this true?" And then, yes, he did delete the message claiming that it had all been a simple misunderstanding.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. First of all, birtherism is not a simple misunderstanding. It's almost like wishful thinking for racists, right? I feel like they just want to believe that this person wasn't born here, or it's just a campaign to stop black people from mobilizing, try to get us to split each other up, And then I feel like this is the same thing that happened to Obama, right? Exactly the same thing. And it didn't work then. So it's not going to work now.
Yeah, and also...
I guess the only difference is where Obama was born, not where his ancestors were born.
Yeah. And the good news about all this is Harris's campaign already raised $2 million just 24 hours after the debate. So this must be what really has...
It's from the Jamaicans.
Yeah, the Jamaicans all donated whatever their money or currency is. I'm assuming this is what has Republicans shook, right? And for those that don't know, Kamala is a biracial daughter of a Jamaican father and Indian mother, but she is absolutely an American citizen. Apparently, she's faced questions about her race all throughout her career as a prosecutor and senator, and in one interview, she referred to herself simply as an American. She said, quote, "I am who I am. I'm good with it. You might need to figure it out, but I'm fine with it." And furthermore, on Thursday, Kamala said, quote, "Growing up, my sister and I had to deal with the neighbor whose parents told her she couldn't play with us because we were black." So she does also identify as black, and she directly called out Biden's previous position on segregation as hurtful, and she confronted him for once opposing busing black students to schools to better integrate them. She said, quote, "There was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools, and she was bused to school every day, and that little girl was me." And then she dropped the mic and walked off stage. Kidding, of course. But she did crush the debate. And just to give you guys a recap on the rest of the candidates who didn't really get as much of a, I guess, takeaway as Kamala, Warren did dominate the first night, like Hermione from Harry Potter. She had a progressive plan and answer for everything. Some people were tweeting that, calling it Granger danger. But come on, it's not dangerous unless you're Trump. Yeah, it is cute.
I guess dangerous if you raise your hand too fast and hit someone.
There you go. Yes, that makes sense. And all of the candidates from that night explained how they would take on Turtle Dick Mitch, and they also agreed that climate change and China are the biggest threats to America right now. Unfortunately, the mics messed up halfway through the first debate, so I guess Democrats can't tech either. And of course, Trump tweeted that the debate was, quote, boring. The second night had a ton of Spanish. Cory Booker seemed upset that Beto beat him to the punch. Castro focused on decriminalizing illegal immigrants. Booker preached about how thoughts and prayers are not enough to solve gun violence. Mayor Pete called out fake religious people, and Bernie was Bernie.
He was.
Yeah.
What? Hey, everyone, listen. He was so Bernie.
He stayed true to himself, and you gotta love that.
He can't ever not be him.
Exactly. He's consistent.
I wonder do you think they gave them a heads up that they were going to ask questions in Spanish?
I don't think. Oh, they did ask questions in Spanish.
What
was
that?
But I think only to the Spanish speakers.
Okay.
But do you think they gave him like a heads up even?
Possibly.
Maybe? Yeah, that's interesting. Because that's like obviously rhetorical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Aside, like 100% rhetorical.
Yeah, I can also see the candidates just deciding on their own to address the, Spanish people or Latin.
Yeah. 100%.
But yeah, it would make sense to also be given the heads up about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it would throw you off in the debates and suddenly switch languages.
Or like if you're Castro or something, right? And then because I think he was one of the people that the moderators asked
a
question in Spanish.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then so if like Castro didn't know, he's going to be fine because he actually speaks good Spanish. But then other people that might not speak as good as Spanish feel pressured to step up to the plate. I wonder if that was the situation or if they were aware, like, hey, just so you know, there's going to be some Spanish going on
if
tonight.
If anyone knows behind the scenes debate gossip, email us. I'm very
It's so
curious
interesting.
Too.
And it's really cool. Aside from its like sort of cringy nature at times, I think it was like, it's a very good sign that is something that they're trying to integrate, basically,
Definitely.
and show an understanding of.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I was like, I don't speak Spanish, but I think it's really cool that they are.
Concur. And I think Inslee was even like, Trump's trying to send migrants to sanctuary cities and thinking that we'll be upset, but we're really glad because diversity is our strength.
Absolutely, yeah. And then Marianne, I'll just mention her because I did leave out some other candidates that were
Marianne,
forgettable.
Marianne.
Swalwell was.
I love her.
Boring.
She's so. Somebody actually sent me a question. They said, pick a man and a woman from the current Democratic dais, candidates for president, that you have to have a threesome with, one man and one woman, and that's who you want to be president and vice president. And I'm like, nope, not even close.
Not
because
gonna work.
For the threesome, I would pick Beto and Marianne.
Oh,
because Beto is tall and hot.
I go with
Marianne
Pete
just
and
seems very
Kamala.
soothing.
Yeah. Pete wouldn't want to fuck me.
And she would bring candles and incense and stuff, and I'm into that.
Yeah.
But I would not want either of them to be president. So it's just kind of
Kamala
funny.
probably also would want to fuck me. But yeah, this is a cool game. Yeah.
It's like a fuck, marry, kill, but
for sure. But I don't want to kill
like
anyone.
that. Bernie's like, everybody's getting eating out.
Oh yeah, Bernie's orchestrating
Nobody
the
wants
orgy.
me in their threesome. It's because I'm socialist.
Oh man, I do appreciate.
I want to take everyone's orgasms and give them to everybody else.
Yeah.
Marianne, apparently, there's Republicans that are rallying to donate to her cause. Yeah,
to keep her on the stage.
So crazy. Yeah,
I don't think she's that crazy.
I think she's a cool person. Like she seems like a really cool, like, I don't know, human.
Yeah. Badass.
The social media backlash certainly has been.
It's been bad.
Indicative of people thinking she's crazy. Maybe.
Right. Well, as a president, I gotta say she does sound crazy in that capacity. But as a friend, I would love to hang out with her.
Dude,
like,
she seems totally awesome,
Yeah.
and I appreciate. Actually, I think she married Liz Taylor to somebody, and with Michael Jackson being there. She's been around a while.
Yeah, she's very interesting. And I want to say, okay, I said Swalwell was boring earlier. I will stand by that as he was like, sure, I guess you see what I'm saying. But he talked about gun control a lot, which I thought was really important. But my problem is that he focused on it so much that I couldn't see past that one issue. It's like they all talked about gun control, but he seemed to almost only talk about it. And then he took a dig at Biden's age. And I was like, that's kind of sassy. You see that?
It was everything. He was like, pass the torch, I'm younger, and that's why I'm better. And it was like, okay, we get it.
Right, right. That was
I
boring
do
to me,
understand.
yeah.
Even Buttigieg, who is kind of running on this new generational thing, it's like, just let your age speak for itself.
For sure.
Let your generation speak for itself, and let
Mhm.
your ideals speak for itself. You don't have to keep coming in and reminding everyone that you're young.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I do think both of the debates really stuck it to the GOP, though, because it was not entirely fixated or even really remotely fixated on Trump-Russia, which is something that I think everyone was expecting Democrats to really, really, really campaign on and take this, next election as a referendum.
They didn't mention Mueller at all, really, right? Did anyone mention Mueller? I can't recall.
A couple people at least mentioned Russia as a geopolitical threat, and
but not even half, like maybe two
or three.
Yeah,
I know De Blasio is what I call him. He was very like, Russia because they interfered in our democracy. That was first night. Second night, I think 2 people mentioned, maybe 3 people mentioned Russia.
Yeah, but just not to the extent that I
But
actually
what killed me
expected.
is that the moderator specifically asked about how they would deal with China.
Yeah, and they all
I mean, I get
dodged
that it's
bit.
an issue with trade and tariffs and currency manipulation, but are we just afraid to ask about Mueller because we're afraid that that's an identity politic and that the other side is going to be like, look, Mueller.
I think so.
Yeah.
I
And
think
I was just gonna say, I guess China is a big threat, but you're saying the more like right in front of our face threat is Russia, right? Because China owns us, right? At least Putin's just trying
7%
to own our
of us.
president. Yeah.
Or
not
like,
people, but 7% of the economy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it was intentional. The benefit of having these debates facilitated by, media organizations that are generally more sympathetic to our liberal brethren and sisterlin. I don't know how to make that.
Y'all.
Yeah.
That's what I've been saying. Y'all.
Yeah.
Nice.
They get to rhetorically shape the debate a little bit, at least as far as the questions go. And so the fact that they didn't ask many questions that were directly related to what is still an incredibly pressing part of our political landscape, I think was very intentional.
Right. They're letting that speak for itself, right?
You got to keep them separated.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hell
I
yeah.
hate that song. And that, and that's why we have the Daily Beans coming up and Mueller, She Wrote separate, because again, I agree with this. I think if the election focus is too much on Mueller, it's going to be, I think they want to separate just because they're like witch hunt. Trump did a very good job at his disinformatia campaign and his reflexive control campaign to hurt the language of collusion and conspiracy
Mueller's
and
name and
Mueller and hoax and
For
witch
sure.
hunt. He did a very good job with that marketing. It really sunk in to his base, to his followers. So it makes sense. But I love the debates. I thought they were great.
Yeah, I'm ready for more of them.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we do have more coming up at the end of July.
I'm excited.
Same. And I found out it's not double. They did already double the amount of donations that you needed for the first debates, and they're keeping it same for the second debates.
Yeah, and Sunday is the cutoff, right? Tomorrow, when the episode comes. Actually, it's today. Actually,
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't.
That's what I read.
I
yeah.
saw a calendar with a thing highlighted on it, and it seemed like in the Sunday area. So.
Yeah. I do believe it is today that we are publishing this on
But
Sunday.
my brain thinks in pictures, so
for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, like when I think of the end of the week, I think it's all the way over on the right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the beginning of the month is top left.
Yeah.
It just always is.
Oh,
Definitely.
totally. Yeah. But if you want to donate to a candidate, I think you should do it ASAP because
you
it
definitely
might cut off tonight.
Yeah, you definitely need to. And I have given to a few. I have my top picks. I think that Kamala and Warren and Buttigieg and Booker.
Yes, totally. In that order.
There was one other.
Bernie?
Oh, no, it's just
Castro?
the 5 that are going to make it. It's Castro. I did give
okay.
to
These are
Castro.
not your picks.
These are mine.
I was going to say that's a great order. Yeah, I agree with that totally. You said Castro was your 5th?
Yeah.
Okay, above Bernie. That's the thing, man. Bernie's got all the right issues, but for some reason he just doesn't have the swag anymore.
I think the whole purpose of Bernie's existence on this planet was to push the Democratic Party to the left so that we are having the correct discussions that we need to be having on the debate stage right now. He gets full credit for that.
Totally.
It's an amazing feat that he did it. And I love him for doing it. But I really think, if Elizabeth Warren has the same exact policies and she's got more detailed plans to get there, why would you not vote for Warren?
Yeah.
Totally,
But
yeah.
I've already pledged my vote to whoever women of color are backing in the primary, and I'm going to vote for whoever wins the fucking primary and whatever Democrat wins. So, but I do love to talk about this, and I do love to see, but I do think those are going to be our top 6.
For sure. And I think the black community, like, maybe there are some people who do think that Kamala put away too many people in jail, and I feel like that's her biggest obstacle there. But I think she would be the best candidate to rally.
But I think Jordan had a really good point yesterday during the Daily Beans, which is she came into a corrupt system to try to fix it. It was shit when she got here.
Yeah.
The system has always been corrupted with like just systematic racism and social injustice and just such wrong concepts and things and no body cams and police brutality and unfair applications of laws. And she came in like, I'm going to try to fix this, and she just got beat up trying to do it. Because you can't just come in and make it all better.
No, you have to work within it, which is rough.
Yeah.
It's like being a police officer.
And she wanted to make those changes. Biden did have a good zinger. That was his one zinger when he said, I was a public defender, not a prosecutor.
Yeah, but that's his only one because she, is black, and she's I think just not being black makes you a good black person, but like clearly she is great with the issue of racial politics, and he is slipping. So
he is slipping.
Yeah.
But they were still, and again, all 100 million times better than Trump. And
for sure,
I will vote for whoever it is.
Blue, no matter, even if it's Marianne, I will vote for her. I swear to God, I will if she gets it.
Yeah, she won't. But
she won't. But
I mean, watch Kanye come and put all of his support behind her.
Oh no,
unless that's Russia's pick. But I'm pretty sure that's Tulsi.
I think that
there's no Jill Stein. Sorry,
no, you're right though. Like also Tulsi, yeah, she's.
I'm worried she's going to run green or run independent.
Try to split it.
Try to get those votes. Try to get those. All you need is apparently to steal 80,000 votes.
I guess so.
And then demand a recount, make a bunch of money, and ghost.
Yeah, they're gonna try every angle, I bet.
Yes, and they're very good at that. And no one apparently feels like they need to call the FBI. So
we should call them.
Yeah. All right. Hey, do you guys remember? Oh, you know what? Before I get into what I'm going to say, Jordan.
Yes.
I really need to hear because it's your turn now. And that's how things go.
Thank you.
I was about to just take off with my own.
I feel you. We're ready to go.
Hot note.
I'll make it quick.
But you guys, these documents are seriously almost some of my favorite documents. The Ice Cube ones were pretty great. And then those, what were they called? Concord Management's lawyers' court filings with the I taught putty tat and fuck.
Weird
and,
references, yeah.
Yeah, trolling in court.
Those were pretty great too, but these are pretty awesome.
Yeah. So Roger Stone news this week. On Thursday, Roger Stone's attorneys responded to prosecutors' accusations that their client, Mr. Stone, had violated his gag order again. They wrote an 11-page long reply. You can see it very easily on the internet.
I have no gag reflex. I mean,
that's
what?
Hilarious.
Yeah. And basically their main argument in defense of him was that Stone was clearly within his First Amendment rights when he posted on social media complaining about the unfairness of the press coverage surrounding his case, basically. That was essentially their main argument. So I'm going to give you some direct quotes here because they are golden. First, their more, I guess, legitimate sounding argument was that the posts that are being looked at are not statements, nor do they pose a danger to the fair trial concern, which was and is the constitutional raison d'etre of the order.
Raison d'etre. Yeah,
that's how you say it.
Yeah, it's from French.
Okay, you actually say it French though. I have a history of sounding like a douchebag trying to pronounce things. Like
I know. Let's just look it up. Actually, that's a good. Send us the correction now.
It's probably like raison d'etre or something. I don't fucking. Either way, whatever. Their point is that they're saying it's not a big deal. Essentially, they also said that the fact that the government's focusing on these posts exhibits a willful blindness to the tens of thousands of hostile to Stone articles.
Hostile? Everyone is so hostile to me.
Yes. Hostile to Stone articles, which have been authored by others about the investigation and Stone's case. There's articles, animated cartoons, comments, editorials, television and radio programs, panels, celebrity dark comedy readings of the special counsel report, and even a comedic portrayal of Roger Stone by Steve Martin,
which was genius
on Saturday Night Live, which satirically portrayed Stone as a caricature of himself. They complain about that. They're talking about how it's so inconsequential, Stone's presence on social media as it exists currently, whenever he posts things that are bashing the media, mainly Washington Post and the New York Times, and how they're covering all of his things. But not only are they is he complaining about these news organizations, there's claims that are being made and filings that are actually being made by his attorneys that are trying to argue that the government didn't actually independently verify that Russian operatives hacked the DNC in 2016. And then Stone posted some things that were sort of related to his, he tweets, funny, no at New York Times or at Washington Post coverage of this development. The development being their claim that the DNC committee hack, it was never corroborated that Russian operatives actually did it, but it was.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that winds up getting, prosecutors then filed a separate document that refutes Stone's claims, confirming that it was in fact independently corroborated. And then this is essentially, he's basically saying, they say that he's the most minor of participants in all of this. And because of that, he should be able to say whatever the hell he wants, essentially.
Oh yeah, real minor character in all this. Roger fucking Stone.
Yeah, and it's a really big departure from the last time that he was accused of doing some bullshit on social media when he posted that picture of Amy Berman Jackson with some crosshairs hanging out by her head.
That.
Yeah.
No, what? No bigs.
Their reaction then was much more apologetic, and
it was a cross, like they were praying, like she was holy.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
You know, when people do things like post pictures of like fake guns to Trump's head, or like with Kathy Griffin with the thing with the head, granted much more gruesome than crosshairs, it's still the same message, I think, or at least if they're going to claim that what she did was so crazy, it's like at least acknowledge how what Stone is doing is a threat.
Yeah, what about that double standard? You want to talk about how Kathy Griffin's whole life got taken away from her when she posted that?
She's back pretty good though.
Hell yeah.
Her hardcore fans.
Please be on the show.
Yeah, that's true.
Come say hi. We love you.
Yeah.
We could talk about that in particular. Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much there's Amy Berman Jackson's reaction is yet to be determined. We'll see what she says. Like I said, they had until Thursday to give their explanation as to why on earth she should interpret these actions as anything other than an egregious violation of his gag order once again.
She was already so exasperated with him like a month ago.
For sure.
You know, and she's just got to be like, all right, bring it, asshole. What you got to say this time? And I mean, I think she's just going to put him in jail. I think she's going to...
She'll have every reason to. If she didn't before because she was worried it might
Because we thought she would before.
Yeah, she had a good enough reason then too. But now there's almost no excuse to feel bad about it. Do that shit.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
We'll back you, Judge Jackson, if you're nasty.
Yeah, and to try to make the argument, his counsel's trying to make the argument that the American public is getting enough images of anti-Stone, essentially, that, you know, whatever he's doing should just sort of fly under the radar. That's basically
We're not
their
under
argument.
a gag order.
Yes.
Exactly.
Steve Martin doesn't have a gag order.
Exactly.
You do.
Exactly.
It says you can't talk about the case.
Yep.
And you talked about the case and then said, I wasn't. I was just making rhetorical questions.
Yeah, yeah. I can't even imagine that kind of
and
privilege.
criticizing the media.
Yeah, being under a gag order, but you're still too privileged to realize that makes you I don't understand it.
Too privileged to realize and just can't shut up.
Yeah.
You just can't shut up.
Especially when one of the things that the entire American public has as an indictment against you is your tendency to attempt to disseminate information that is damaging to current processes of justice.
Well, yeah, what are you going to court for? Think about it.
Exactly. Yeah. He's one of those guys that has the right to remain silent but not the ability.
Yeah.
Just like Trump. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you very much. And man, those debates were good, but that Roger Stone filing made me laugh. Go check it out if you get a chance. We'll send it out in the newsletter too for patrons this week. All right. Do you guys remember a long time ago? Well, it was like a couple weeks ago when Jerry Nadler from the House Judiciary subpoenaed Bill Barr and the Justice Department for the full unredacted Mueller report and the underlying stuff.
Yeah.
And then the DOJ said, nah. So Nadler voted in the committee, his Judiciary Committee, to hold Barr in contempt. And then he was about to go to the full House, not the show, but the representative, to vote to hold him in contempt. Because that's the contempt process. Do it in committee, you win, you take it to the House, vote in the full House. He has since passed a bill saying they don't have to do the full House vote. They can go straight to court. They haven't used that yet. It's been a couple weeks. Maybe they're waiting until after the summer break. I don't fucking know.
For a fuller House.
Yeah, they're waiting for a fuller House. The new re-release. Bob Saget is busy.
Oh, there you go.
I think is what the problem is, and he needs to be there for the vote.
Yes.
So anyway, he was going to go to the full House for the vote of contempt, and then Barr was like, no, hang on, we can chat, just chill out. No need to hold me in contempt. And then they started these negotiations to see if they would what they could get, right? And Nadler held the contempt vote in abeyance for the time being. So all that, they finally reached a deal this week, and it sucks. Basically, the Department of Justice is going to allow 3 people. They're all House representatives, Democrat Demings, Democrat Swalwell, and Republican Ratcliffe, to see all the information. Those 3. And the reason it's just those 3 is because they're the only 3 that sit on both the House Judiciary and House Intelligence Committees. But there are, of course, strings attached. The rules are so strict, in fact, according to Politico, Demings told Politico, that members of the Intel Committee are prohibited from discussing what they see with members of the Judiciary Committee and vice versa. There are no further details about it, like we don't know if they can take notes or leave with copies. I doubt it, but we'll see. Keep in mind, Trump's lawyers have seen it all, and they were allowed to take notes and discuss it before we even saw the report.
Totally.
So that happened Monday. And then Tuesday, we heard whispers that the House Judiciary and the Intel committees were prepping for subpoenas for Robert Mueller. And while we were in studio recording our daily update for patrons, it was announced that Mueller has agreed to testify in public to both the House and Intel committees and behind closed doors with staffers from each of those committees, all on July 17th. And even though Mueller has said he's reluctant to testify, and even though these were not friendly subpoenas, this is a really huge deal. We know, that Mueller has said he will not go outside of the 4 corners of the report and that his report is his testimony. That's it. End of story. But we also know that less than 3% of Americans have read it. And there are many who only get their news from Fox and Bill Barr. Remember that lady at the Justin Amash rally was like, I didn't even have any idea there was anything bad about Trump in the Mueller report. I watched Fox News and she seemed like a reasonable person.
No, it's a good point.
But she wasn't a dick, She wasn't like, no, it's Winston hoax. She
literally,
was like, I literally had no idea.
Yeah, that's all you get. Yeah.
And, she listened to what Bill Barr told her, and who, as we know, mischaracterized the findings of the report so badly that Mueller didn't only go to paper, writing letters of his disapproval, multiple letters, we've only seen one, but he spoke publicly about it for 9 minutes on the matter. And that's the most he's spoken ever in his entire life, including all of his past lifetimes, according to Marianne Williamson. No, I don't know. But to most, that seems like no big deal. But to Mueller, that's a really big deal.
Exactly. And I think the rest of the world will eventually catch up to this, potentially after the hearings. They'll realize how big of a deal this is. But we've known, Mueller, she wrote, listeners have known, this is crazy. This is huge.
Yeah, so we might find the testimony a little boring and a little disappointing. But remember, just try to take it in as somebody who's never heard any of this before.
Exactly.
Try to take it in like that lady from the Amash rally. And Trump, of course, could not keep his mouth shut after the news came out that Mueller would be testifying publicly. And he decided it'd be a good idea to accuse Mueller of a crime without any evidence. So during a press conference on his way to the G20, I think, he doesn't have press conferences. He just yells at reporters outside of helicopters. Yeah. Oh, what? I hate you. Okay, bye. Trump accused Mueller of deleting texts between Strzok and Page.
Yeah, terminating them.
Terminate.
He aborted them. That's illegal now.
He was aborted them. It was Missouri. Big mistake. As we all know, it was the FBI that wiped the phones after Strzok and Page left the FBI, and that is routine. I have left multiple posts in the federal government, and once you leave, you hand your phone in, they wipe it clean. And we also, before you leave, they do it before you leave, because you got to get your fingerprint on there.
Yeah.
And then we also know that the Inspector General, Horowitz, was able to recover all those texts. And the Trump's Department of Justice released them to the public.
But he's trying to just spin the narrative so that the average Joe will think that Mueller's shady.
Course.
That's all it's about. And just like he said Obama wiretapped him, but nothing came of that.
Totally.
And people just think probably that Obama wiretapped him to this day.
The FISA got a pen register on Carter Page after he left the campaign. That's probably what he means by Obama wiretapped him.
Oh, I see. He's like, how do you know my secrets?
Yeah. How do you know I fucking cheated? Well... So the Inspector General, this is Trump's Inspector General, found that Strzok and Page did not violate any records preservation policies with the FBI when they handed their phones over. They didn't delete anything, destroy any evidence or whatever. And he also found out that none of their work product was impacted by any kind of bias. So Mueller removed Strzok from his team once the text came to light to avoid any appearance of conflict, even the slightest appearance. Though he didn't have to do that, but he did because he wants everything to be clean and smooth sailing. And now Trump is directly accusing Mueller of deleting the text messages. And then Jay Sekulow, Trump's attorney, made a statement this week saying, no, we're not going to do anything to block Mueller's testimony. You're welcome.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
yes,
and I'm pretty
so
sure he couldn't if he wanted to. And I asked Harry Litman about that later in the interview. It's really funny.
Perfect.
So stick around for that. And it is not known if Swalwell, Demings, and Ratcliffe will get access to the full tranche of Mueller materials before Mueller testifies, though I'm sure they will, which could explain why it's scheduled for weeks from now.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives them time to read in on everything and discuss it within their respective committees, but not with each other.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to remember, no pictures, no notes. People are setting up watch parties for July 17th, where Mueller is expected to testify to one committee for about 2 hours and then the other committee for about 2 hours, back to back.
And they're both open.
Both public, televised.
Wow.
It's going to be across every channel, all channels.
Yeah.
And this is important because the only competing voice to Trump is going to be Mueller. No one else has that level of an important of a voice as Trump does. And all we've heard from him and his attorney general are no collusion, no obstruction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm exonerated. It's a witch hunt. No do-overs.
Mm-hmm. This will be so powerful, even if people don't realize it in real time, because Trump talks all the time and says nothing, and Mueller just says one or two things, and it's everything.
Yeah.
So imagine when he talks for 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah, he's
Oh my
like
God.
the Woody on Cheers, right? Doesn't have a lot of lines, but they're always really funny.
Yes.
I also think that Trump sort of did Mueller and people like us a favor by coming out with some of those tweets saying, "Thank you, Mueller, great guy, fully exonerated." And so his base has seen snapshots now of Trump having faith in Mueller.
His report is the Bible.
Yes, even though he obviously backtracks on that. at
Yeah,
times.
totally.
But hopefully there's going to be some people that are actually his supporters, Trump supporters, that will watch this with some level of trust going into it.
Yeah, I'm
Had
betting
he not said those things.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
probably
and he's
thinks his
also a
base
war
won't watch.
hero. Yeah, a lot of them won't watch. You're
Right.
right. But if 10 watch, it's 10 more than we
or
had.
just the independents that are on the fence and think that liberals are being too crazy right now. It's
Yes.
like, no, we're not. I mean, sometimes, but not right now.
We're being gaslit for sure. So he's going to do 2 hours and 2 hours back to back. And then the private staff hearings will take place before the first public testimony and after the second in their respective committees. So we'll have that nonstop block of 4 or 5 hours of pure, unadulterated Mueller testimony.
I'm so excited. We're watching at UPenn?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
But we will be in Philly that day preparing
cool.
for our show that night at the Philly Podfest at the World Life Cafe. And since the announcement, tickets have been flying out the door for that. It's like blowing my mind. So this happened to us when the Mueller report dropped. We had a show at Largo in Los Angeles. We had sold half the tickets, and that day we sold the other half. So I swear we're not coordinating. So calm down, Jim Jordan. We're not in cahoots with special counsel on these drops. But I'm hoping Mueller is willing to answer some questions outside the confines of his report. But again, I'm not expecting much, and I'll expect he'll answer nothing about ongoing cases or counterintelligence matters. I'm also interested to see how he handles Matt Gaetz, Louis Gohmert, and Jim Jordan, possibly the 3 stupidest congressmen ever to darken the doorway of Capitol Hill. And I do think that this could be the straw that tips us into a majority of support for opening at least an impeachment inquiry, though probably not until after the summer congressional break, but we'll see. So I want you to watch closely what questions Swalwell and Demings ask Mueller. And watch Ratcliffe, too, because normally Republicans are like, you cheated. When did you cheat? Did you cheat? Ratcliffe might have seen that full Mueller report by then. It might be like, I have no questions.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
Maybe he calls in sick. You don't know. But keep an eye on those 3 and see how they what they have to say, how that plays out, and pay close attention to Democratic response as it relates to impeachment, particularly on the issue of obstruction of justice. The public, I think we're at 48% now, are for impeachment for Americans. That could go up. And then also I think we're somewhere between 80 and 90 Democrats in the House are for impeachment.
Wow.
That will probably go up too, and you can put some beans on that. All right, guys, are you ready for sabotage?
Yes.
All right, guys, one of Mueller's top prosecutors, Andrew Weissman, has scored a book deal. Yeah, and it's one of Trump's lawyer's friends named DeGeneva who is the first to comment on it. Remember this guy DeGeneva? He offered to represent the New York field office FBI agents, and he was part of that whole leaky shit.
I remember his name. Yeah.
They wanted to leak the He's got like a wife, DeGeneva, who they're both lawyers, and they wanted to leak those HRC emails on the Wiener laptop. That's the guy.
There you go. Yeah.
He says that Weissman's testimony will be 10 times more dangerous for Trump than Mueller's, and it's unclear what will be uncovered in this book. Though if Andy McCabe's The Threat is any indicator, he might not he will not be talking about any open and ongoing investigations. And I'm sure the FBI will need to vet the book prior to its being published.
These books are going to be like, I bet, assigned in college courses someday.
I hope so.
These are so important.
I hope so.
Yeah.
No word on when it comes out, but Peter Strzok is also working on a book, so we'll keep our eyes out for that.
It's all text messages, just a picture book.
Yeah. It's a picture book of text messages.
I hate Trump.
Everybody sucks. Fucking everyone. Fuck everyone. I want Weissman to testify publicly to Congress. That's who I want to testify. I love Mueller. I named a podcast after him, but I really want Weissman to testify.
Yeah, Weissman, he has less of those like restrictions as a person, I guess, right? He feels more compelled maybe to be a little more
He doesn't
revealing.
have any more or less restrictions, but he has not come out and said, I'm not going to talk about anything that's not in the report. He might answer questions like, if Trump were a civilian, would he be a crimer? Yes, he would be indicted if he were a civilian. He might be willing to answer those questions where I don't think
that's
Mueller
what I'm
would.
hoping for, yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to see him testify. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, when they're on their press tour, maybe they can come on our show then. Because they'll, I imagine, like... McCabe went on Colbert and stuff, so
yeah,
and he came on our
Bill
show.
Maher, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually reach out to a few people and see if I can't get Strzok and Weissman to come on our show.
Definitely
promote their book. That would be really great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right, you guys ready for the Fantasy Indictment League?
Oh yes.
I'm gonna be indicted!
No, wait, it's gonna be okay.
Indicted!
Honey, Dick.
Indicted!
Honey.
I'm gonna be indicted!
Oh, they can't. It's gonna be okay. Just calm down.
I can't calm down. I'm gonna be indicted!
All right, cool. Jaleesa, you get to go first this time, then Jordan, and then me. So who you picking this week?
I'm gonna go with Brody.
All right.
I'm going, goddamn. Tom Barrack.
Nice. I'm going Trump inaugural along those lines.
Nice.
I will do Eric Prince.
Oh, good.
Guy so much.
I'm doing Soriano again.
Soriano. Oh, yeah, Soriano.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do Superseding Stone.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I will do Trump org.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do Kushner.
Kush. Good one. I'm going to go Kevin Downing. I'm concerned about that guy.
Yeah, you don't hear too much.
Not like concerned
for him as well. But
yeah.
Concerned about his impact on the world. Yeah. I will go with Sherry Dillon.
Nice.
I'm going to do Rando.
Okay. I'm going to do Superseding Manafort.
Nice.
I will also do a Rando.
Okay. And I will do Corsi plea deal.
That was my next one.
Right.
Do you one more? Do we have?
You do.
Yes, you do. That's it, though.
Okay, I'm going to go with Westling. That's the other one of Manafort's lawyers that could be implicated in this.
How do you spell that one again?
Westling.
Perfect.
Like he could be implicated in this whole Kevin Downing, you up text messages in the middle of the night, sort of gag order retroactive violations. So
very nice.
Cool. That is how we play the Fantasy Indictment League, guys. It is now time for the interview. You guys, this is really such a great interview. I love when Harry Litman comes on, so take a listen. Joining us today for the interview in studio is former U.S. Attorney. He's a law professor at UCSD and UCLA, Washington Post columnist, and host of the outstanding Talking Feds podcast. Please welcome Harry Litman. Professor Litman, thank you for coming on Mueller, She Wrote again.
Thank you very much for having me, and please call me Harry. We are fellow San Diegans. So.
San Diegoans.
How do you say it? San Diegoans?
San Diegans. Yeah, I know. It's a joke from Anchorman.
Oh, okay. All right.
San Diegoans.
San Diegoans.
Yeah, wins, I think. So I have a lot that I want to ask you because you are my legal angel here. Because as we all know, I am not a lawyer by any means or any stretch of the imagination. But I talk a lot about legal things, and I just want to make sure I have everything straight in my head before I form my opinions. I think that's good for everyone to do.
And you're counting on me for that, right?
Yes, no pressure.
The law is that which is plausibly asserted and boldly maintained. So I'll.
I like that. Who said that?
I don't know.
I
didn't make it up. But
plausibly asserted, boldly maintained.
Boldly maintained. So
I'm into it.
Yeah. Ask me anything.
I will. All right. So this week, Paul Manafort, as we know, pleaded not guilty to 16 counts of mortgage fraud, tax fraud, and conspiracy in New York State. And his lawyers say that they're going to argue their case based on New York's strict double jeopardy laws, which don't, to me, seem to apply in this case at all. as these are state crimes specifically. I don't think Vance, the Manhattan District Attorney, would have even brought these charges if they violated the double jeopardy law. Can you explain to us why they're going with this defense? Is it maybe it's all they have? Will it work?
Yeah. So look, I mean, I think you are half right in terms of it's not applying, but only half right. And will it work? Probably not. But here's the deal. The normal federal constitutional guarantee says you can't be tried twice for the same crime. And what that means, there's a kind of arcane test that has to do with, are all the elements the same? Now, as you probably know, like the Supreme Court has ruled and just reaffirmed recently that when a state tries a same defendant for the same violation on the heels of a federal crime, no double jeopardy problem on the, basically fiction and not very realistic fiction either, that it's just different sovereigns. It's like the feds and, Peru.
And that's US v. Gamble.
That Gamble has just reaffirmed that idea, the separate sovereign doctrine. So the federal Constitution has nothing to say about it. But New York state law does. New York, reacting to this separate sovereign idea, has a law. And the law says, essentially, if it's what would be double jeopardy other than the sovereign problem, it will be barred here. So under New York law, if it were the same case, that would mean they couldn't bring it even though the Constitution would permit them. So what's the same case mean? It basically means all the elements are the same. So here, the mortgage fraud that New York has charged does involve some of the same loans that Manafort got tagged for on the federal side. But on the federal side, it was for bank fraud and other things. Here it's for mortgage fraud and implicates the kind of mortgage interests and integrity of New York State. So it's probably a loser because the New York court would probably find that there is a separate element, so it's not the same crime even under New York law.
Right. It wasn't necessarily about lying about your financials to get a mortgage fraudulently, which is a federal crime. This was more about saying that your apartment was a residence for you or a family member, and then renting it out on Airbnb.
Your apartment down on Howard Street, right next to where I used to live in New York, and it's now super hip and I'm sure very expensive.
Do we own that now?
Do we own it? No, we don't. we don't own it. Or we're not neighbors with Paul Manafort. But Jasper Johns lived down the block at the time. I think it's gotten a little more gentrified as befits Paul Manafort owning it. Now, there's also this wrinkle, I don't know if you want to discuss about the possible change to New York law.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, is because I know the New York State Legislature passed this law that is going to give an exemption for when a presidential pardon is issued, that New York can, in fact, try same crime, same circumstances, which this isn't the case, though.
Right.
And so I don't think it's applicable here. But if it were, let's say they did charge Manafort with the exact same tax fraud and stuff that they charged him federally under this new law, which Cuomo hasn't signed yet, but let's say he signs it. Would there be any ex post facto law that would blanket cover Manafort from not being allowed to be charged with these crimes since he's already committed them?
Yeah, I think the short answer is no. There's been some dispute about this because you read in the papers that it carves him out, but it doesn't. If the triggering event is the actual pardon. So if Trump were to, and I think that's probably why Cuomo's taking his time. Everyone thinks Trump, if he would do it, wouldn't be until, say, near the end of his term. If he does that, the new New York law, if it passes, is triggered, and we're under the same sort of federal regime of saying New York's a separate sovereign, but it's going to be okay. But it's really designed very carefully to go right at this situation that people are worried about. Trump himself pardons Manafort or pardons a family member, then you have this special New York law. Once it passes, then Manafort would be in the soup again.
But if Trump pardoned Manafort before Cuomo signed the law, then he wouldn't be subject to these things.
That's right, because the triggering event, then, you got it.
Got it. The triggering event is the pardons. I wonder if Trump feels any pressure, or Manafort's attorneys, or feel any pressure for a quick pardon. before this law is signed.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny. There's a little game of chicken going on. Cuomo could sign it tomorrow. I think they're assuming, and I don't know why he hasn't, frankly. He has said that he will.
Maybe he's just stressing them out.
That would go.
Like every day he's like, gonna sign it.
Maybe not. maybe today is the testimonial to the Bronx Zoo. But
just make them sweat.
That's right. But I think they're assuming that Trump's assuming that a pardon of this sort with Manafort would have really adverse consequences at the election, and he wouldn't do it until after. Of course, so many things that everyone assumes would have adverse consequences for Trump, like the pardon of Arpaio, he does anyway. But I do think the assumption is Manafort's on his own until Trump is, on his way out, and then we'll see.
Yeah, all right, that's interesting too, and I am assuming it would also cover not just pardons of Trump's family or Manafort, for example, but maybe if he tried to self-pardon.
Yes,
which
yes,
I don't even think is a thing, but I guess whatever.
We're not. No one's sure. My best guess is it is a thing, but
especially,
what a thing!
Especially if Bill Barr is the Attorney General, who, when asked if it's a thing, wouldn't answer.
Right.
And you wrote a piece, because this is a weird thing, and I just want to talk briefly about it. This is kind of yesterday's news, but he was supposed to go to Rikers. Most people in New York go to Rikers when they're awaiting trial.
And have you been to Rikers, by the way?
I have never visited or been a guest at Rikers. I've just TV is what I know.
Yeah.
And some stories from some folks who've been there. But how did he, we know the story, but how... You wrote a piece about this.
Right.
How unprecedented is it, which I'm getting tired of saying that word, that someone so high as a deputy assistant attorney general?
No. Deputy Attorney General, number 2 guy, first day on the job, Jeff Rosen, comes in. How unprecedented? I'm trying to think of another word for unprecedented because it's absolutely unprecedented.
We need a new word for unprecedented.
In general, we need a new word. Prumprecedented. But you're right. It's not simply so. What the Department of Justice said is, he has unique security and health concerns. Completely bogus. There are people who make this kind of plea every single week. As a U.S. attorney, that it's totally up to the Bureau of Prisons, and you're glad that that's the case. You say, I can maybe make a recommendation here for unprecedented reasons that, somehow Manafort, responding to a letter from his lawyer, gets to stay in the federal system and not Rikers, which, by the way, really is an infernal place. Many young adolescent inmates, Manafort would be in protective custody, but still, it's like, out of Dante. And instead, much, much cushier, much better to stay in the federal system. And that's a real solid that Rosen came in, the deputy, and this was on his desk already. So this is either Barr or the White House or both.
Both, yeah.
And I'm just here to tell you, it never, ever happens that a deputy attorney general would intervene in something like this. So it's quite clear. It's a complete turning of the tables, right? Because the DOJ, in the form of Mueller, has been the one force that Manafort had to worry about. Now they're kind of his good old friends too, and friends do favors for friends. So it does sort of reinforce the notion of keep being solid for the president, and things will be all right. It was really an outrageous kind of corrupt thing to do, because any way you slice it, the only possibility is a political intervention. And for whatever reason, that is simply improper.
Is it illegal at all?
No, is the short answer, because, especially after yesterday when the Supreme Court says we have to be hands-off certain things. Well, actually, I'll change. There's an argument that it's illegal, but it's not. There's no judicial remedy.
It's so unprecedented. We have no judicial remedy.
But
we
know that the department should not be acting for political reasons. We know there shouldn't even be any communication between the White House and the department. But if there is there a remedy? Short answer is probably not.
Yeah, they say it was for medical reasons. We said they asserted white privilege. That's what we said to get him out of there, because no one else would be given that kind of
ever. And who? What other reason could there be? But who he is vis-a-vis the president?
Yeah. All right, let's see another legal question for you. As we all know, Mueller was subpoenaed by the House Judiciary and Intelligence Committees to testify publicly July 17th. We're going to be at Philly that night, by the way. This keeps happening. We get live show. We had a live show at the Largo when the Mueller report dropped. Scheduled for months out, and now we'll be at Philly. And I swear we don't have any head knowledge of any of this. But
take the train. Okay.
But Trump's lawyer, Jay Sekulow, has said, he was asked if they're going to try to block his testimony, and he's like, no, we have no intentions of trying to block Mueller's testimony. And it just seemed disingenuous to me. Does he even have? Is there anything that Trump or the White House or the Department of Justice or Sekulow could do to block this testimony?
Yeah, right. I mean, Sekulow is not even a criminal lawyer. He's like a religious lawyer, this kind of noblesse oblige. Oh, we'll let him go. The short answer is no, there's nothing they can do. On the other hand, there's nothing they could have really done, and I think the courts will prove this about, say, Hope Hicks and other things. But so what can they do? They can make a bad faith assertion and force the Congress to go to the courts, which will take months. And play the delay game. Complete bad faith, complete disingenuousness.
Wait, what's a bad faith assertion? What do you mean by that?
They'd make a legal claim that they know is garbage. But so Sekulow, comes in and says,
like a blanket immunity
for
injunction.
example, which you want to talk about the not being a thing, that's not a thing. But
right, but he could file some sort of a lawsuit.
Right. I mean, Mueller's given a report. Congress has legitimate oversight powers. Asking him about the report is the most straightforward thing in the world. You can imagine questions that the White House would say, we want to try to push back on that. But even that will be difficult.
That's interesting.
But the notion of trying to put roadblocks in at the beginning, what Sekulow is so graciously saying they won't do, they have no basis for doing. But can they make some claim that will put... and notice, by the way, Mueller, every single other person, like Hope Hicks, like Barr, like
Don
everyone,
McGahn,
has made these garbage claims and has forced it into the courts. Mueller could have done the same thing. Mueller is a law-abiding person, and he wanted to.
He didn't want to have any part of this. But
no part of it.
He still
but
understands
he
what
gets
the law
that piece
is.
of paper. It's a subpoena, and he will not make a garbage claim. He'll salute and show up, and indeed that's what he's going to do. There's no good faith basis for resisting, but that hasn't stopped the White House at every turn, and they're just playing a bad faith time game.
So it is feasible that Trump could file a lawsuit claiming some sort of weird privilege that doesn't exist, and that would have to send it to the courts, which would have to take months to resolve.
Or maybe weeks. That, what you've just said, AG, is the exact thing that Trump has done on the taxes.
The Deutsche Bank Capital One.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It'll lose, but we'll lose in enough time that the air will leak out of the tires, whatever. And, this is our president, and at stake here is not simply his own liberty, but our ability as a nation to know, what the hell happened here, and if they have their druthers, we never will. It's a absolute mind-blowing prospect, and that's the game that the White House is playing.
Well, Sekulow says he's not going to, but I would not put it past them.
Right.
And finally, this week, a judge has released about 230 pages of case names and dates for search warrants and communications, about 499 of those, another 200 communication requests. Raw Story then dropped a headline that says, Barr kills 7 Mueller investigations. And I immediately was like, that it cannot even be correct. And I like Raw Story. I didn't quite understand what the clickbait was all about.
They do some good stuff sometimes.
But the way I interpreted the documents when I looked at them was that they were closing 7 applications for orders on April 1st, which was 10 days after the Mueller report came out. Not to us, but to Barr, I think. And none of those seemed to me to be investigations. There was one SDNY investigation, which was remained open and ongoing from the looks of it. So these 7 things that were closed on this docket list, did Barr kill them, and what are they?
You're right, they're wrong. This is, Barr, even a broken clock. Next we'll hear Barr killed the two immigrants or whatever. It's not. So this is, in fact, a routine matter that everyone's getting hot and bothered about. At the end of an investigation, you close up certain procedural things like what? Search warrant applications. There are certain investigative maneuvers that just as the law goes require a so-called separate number and proceeding.
Yeah, and I think these were communications from Twitter and Facebook and things like that. They were
so
looking
those
for it.
is probably not even bar. So what happens at the end of an investigation is the U.S. Attorney's Office that's handling it here, probably a career person from
I think it was SDNY.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
they seem to be linked to the SDNY investigation.
Which is interesting in and of itself. But yeah, so they simply petition the court, hey, we're done with this now. This is technically a matter that's hanging out there. We can close it, and the court does it. That's all it is. It's routine.
Okay, the court. Well, yeah, but it goes through the DOJ, U.S. Attorney's Office.
Right. They make the motion, and court. Yeah.
Yeah, and if there's an argument against the motion of it closing, they'll make that, and then eventually it'll get closed. But usually, I doubt that anything like this would have a motion to argue against the closure of these.
Yeah, like nobody cares.
Yeah, and for all we know, the documents were obtained.
Well, yeah,
and then
CNN right. I mean, the court released them. We've seen what these pages are. It's not a mystery. It's as you say. You go through them and you can see they're the sort of. I haven't done all 7, but these, like a search warrant application, an application in connection with exactly as you say, the law for internet providers. Mm-hmm. Loose ends to tie up. That's all.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of those Manafort texts. That was interesting. Those were attachment 6, and apparently there was an attachment 7 that was still redacted.
Yeah, you mean the things that Mueller terminated, says the president?
No, those are the Strzok and Page texts.
Okay.
These are the Manatee texts. We call them the Manafort
right.
Hannity. Or some people are Team Manafort, but I like Manatee.
Okay.
Yeah, that was weird. But I know why she released them is because there's probably an open and ongoing investigation as to whether or not Kevin Downing should be held in contempt of court for violating a gag order retroactively.
So that's a possibility. There's certainly some, and we see this with Flynn as well. Or it might just be CNN moved for them, and there's no reason not to at this point. There is a general presumption that the press can have things unless they can.
Yeah, but here's my guess, and this is totally just speculation. These are space beans, we call them here on Mueller, she wrote. So the texts in 6, attachment 6, is the ones that we saw.
You've become such a sophisticated observer of this, AP. I gotta say, you are all over this stuff. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm looking at those, and in those they say, you got to talk to my lawyer. He's going to call you January 29th, 3031. And then there's a whole attachment 7 that wasn't released because it's still redacted, and presumably because it's part of an ongoing matter. And I'm wondering if those communications, we don't know if they're texts or not, are the communications between Manafort and Downing. And that is somehow evidence in some sort of a retroactive contempt or gag order violation, sanction order or something. And I don't
know, but the question would be to try to suss it out is if we could conceive of it as a separate matter as opposed to something that would just have been incident, say, to the sentencing or whatever. So could Judge Jackson maybe have ordered that would be the sort of material that all the 7 are about.
Yeah, because she got them much later. And can you retroactively hold someone in contempt or for violating a gag order? Is that something you can do?
Totally. Well, you mean when you say retroactively, they're no longer in a civil contempt must be for an ongoing contemptuous situation, but that doesn't. And of course, there's also criminal contempt. So the short answer is it depends, but I don't think that would matter so much here. Because let's say it had been a contempt proceeding, even if it were closed, then she would still be releasing it now, so we wouldn't exactly know what had happened.
Right. So
did she have a show cause order? Maybe.
Yeah, there could already be a contempt citation or a violation of gag order
citation.
citation.
At least show me why you're not in contempt, and maybe he skated free. Don't know.
Yeah. I wonder if we'll ever find out.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just no joke. There's so many things like that where you have to say, wonder if we'll ever find out. Is it going to be historians 10 years from now making educated surmises? And this is an overall episode of the gravity of, you name it, 9/11 or the Kennedy assassination. It just seems intolerable to me that this will just be guesswork, and in large part because of the successful obstructionism of the White House. It's really, I think, stomach turning.
And not to mention the entire counterintelligence part of the investigation,
Well,
which is
that you understand
usually
right.
never comes out.
Yeah.
And that's why I've been trying to get my co-hosts to find a way to preserve my head after I pass away, so that in 50 or 60 years I'll be able to find out what happened.
Get Josh Campbell or Frank Figluzzi on here. They have very educated surmises on just this topic.
Cool. Yeah, I've tried to get Josh, and I'll speak to him, and Figluzzi's great too. But yeah, I would love to know 60 years from now how this all went down. But we just don't know.
Right. I mean, I'm older now. The prospect is I'll never know. It's just this is the one thing that didn't occur to me, that he might keep himself out of jail. But would he keep the American people from learning about this? It's really.
Well, we did have God on the podcast.
How'd she do?
It was at the good God above. So this is a gentleman from Twitter, and he actually told me that all the Mueller materials will be available in heaven. So there's that. Now, as an atheist, I don't know, but jokes aside, I really wish I was gonna. But if I were 10 years old, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I might not be as interested in it. So. But, future generations.
You are a pioneer for the 10-year-old. My daughter, I think, would be inspired by you to do one. In fact, she may be, for all I know, having a Taylor Swift would be basically Taylor Swift and transgender. Those would be the two topics of her podcast.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I would. You know what? Have her get in touch with me.
Okay.
I'll help her out, because we do get a lot of tweens listening to us, even though we drop F-bombs and stuff. Their moms let us. Their moms let them listen. It's more PG-13. I mean, for gosh sakes, we're not Disney, but we're also not Debbie Does Dallas. So, all right. Well, former U.S. Attorney, WAPO columnist, law professor. Make sure you check out Talking Feds wherever you get your podcasts. Where can we find the Talking Feds podcast?
TalkingFeds.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for mentioning. We're actually going to be in D.C. the week after next doing 5 different Talking Feds episodes with sort of heavy hitters back there. Jamie Gorelick and Bill Crystal and Bob Bauer. On a whole set of different topics that we're excited about. In general, we do both the kind of topical, as we've done just this morning, Joyce Vance, Barb McQuaid, what's going on with the usual suspects, but we're also now more and more doing kind of topical ideas that'll be, as they say, evergreen. So it's been really exciting. I have to say that, it was coming here a few months ago and seeing how you just did it that made me, AG did it, we can do it, and we're trying to do it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's an honor. Thank you. And we love having you guys come on. Every time I have a former U.S. attorney on here, the lights it lights up the room. I can see things now. So I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope we have you back soon.
Thanks very much.
All right, guys, that's our show for this week, and this is the end of June. June is over.
Yeah, it's crazy. I saw someone post a tweet like, damn, July, you're here already. I'm still paying bills from May.
Yeah. Insert any months all the time.
Definitely.
All the time. December is National Procrastination Awareness Month. I thought that was clever, and I figured I'd start telling you about it now.
That's perfect. Very funny.
Signs up on campus when I was going to college that it's like December Procrastination Awareness Month. I'm like, that's good.
I love
that's so
it.
funny. I feel like they should put that in February, the month after everyone sets their New Year's resolutions.
Ooh.
Yeah. No.
If there's a council I could make my appeal
It probably started in February for that reason, but ended up being in December.
Oh yeah, they kept pushing it back. It went that
totally.
way. Yeah.
True.
Do you guys have any final thoughts before we take off?
Just that I'm really stoked to be on tour again. Yeah, Philly. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, get your tickets, please.
Mm-hmm. Seriously, they're getting eaten up pretty fast. Mm-hmm. And thanks again to UPenn and Annenberg School and everybody out there for all their support. And thanks to the Philly Podfest. I can't wait. We're going to have Andrew Torres from Opening Arguments join us on stage. And Renato Mariotti is joining us July 27th in Chicago.
Yeah, different kind of bean town. We got to visit the bean there.
Yeah. And if you can think of anybody who we should have join us on stage at San Francisco.
Oh, sorry.
San
Francisco.
Seattle.
Which we call Beantown.
Oh, God, sorry.
No, they're all Beantown.
We're
We're
going to call
guys.
San Francisco Beantown.
Call it the Beans Tour. Yeah.
And if you know anybody who we think you think we should have on up in San Francisco, let us know. Send us an email, hello@MullerSheWrote, put San Francisco in the title. If you want to go to the Philly meet and greet, it's for patrons, and you just need to send us an email, hello@MullerSheWrote, put Philly VIP in the subject line. That's how we search and find the emails. If you don't do that, we won't find you. We'll respond with the location and time of the event. You'll probably just have to show us that you bought a ticket to the regular show and PayPal us a little bit of Kizash, and that goes to pay for the whole event, and that's going to be really fun. So we will see you guys in Philly, and I know obviously we'll see you next week. We'll see you this Thursday for the page-by-page Mueller report in-depth coverage, and if you're a patron, we will talk to you every day for the rest of this week into modernity. Thank you for being awesome. Please take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. I've been AG.
I've been Jaleesa Johnson.
I've been Jordan Coburn.
And this is Mueller, She Wrote. Mueller, She Wrote is produced and engineered by AG with editing and logo design by Jaleesa Johnson. Our marketing consultant and social media manager is Sarah Lee Steiner, and our subscriber and communications director is Jordan Coburn. Fact-checking and research by AG, and research assistance by Jaleesa Johnson and Jordan Coburn. Our merchandising managers are Sarah Lee Steiner and Sarah Hirschberger Valencia. Our web design and branding are by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios, and our website is MullerSheWrote.com.